one of the things I've been reading about quite a bit recently, and not so recently, is to do with well, I guess evolutionary accounts of arts practice. Why, why we do these strange things, why we hang pictures on the walls, why we carve stone into particular shapes and put them in public places, why we dress up and pretend to be other people and tell stories on a stage or make films, all the other things that we do that, broadly speaking, function as art. Why we do that. Is there an evolutionary account of that? That's one of the things I've been reading. So I've been looking at Ramachandran's work on kind of neurological accounts. I've been looking at Semir Zeki, a bit of Steven Pinker, a whole bunch of people who basically are looking at evolutionary psychology and trying to account for those practices in those ways. The difficulty I'm having, and I know this isn't a difficulty which is solely associated with art. I know that there are similar kind of problems arise when you try to give accounts of morality or try to give accounts of things like religious practice, that kind of thing. The problems are really to do with how the narrative of evolution is conceptualized, I think. At least that's the problem that I have. Because it seems to me that because the evolutionary narrative, which is, an extraordinarily robust theory, it's the most, it's not one you can distrust really, I don't think. It leads to certain kinds of understandings of what the results of that process must be. If that is the process which is driving human development and animal development, then everything, well, most of the things we do, if not all of the things we do, must be either adaptations, which means that they're successful solutions to certain kinds of reproductive or survival problems, or they're exaptations, what Stephen Jay Gould and Lewontin referred to as a spandrel, a kind of accidental solution to a problem produced by something else. Just trying to think of an example of a spandrel. Well, I guess the opposable thumb, which allows us to write, would be a spandrel. Presumably, the opposable thumb was really a solution to a climbing a tree problem, but in solving that particular problem, it opened out a whole other area of behaviour. So it acts as a kind of exaptation. Or these behaviours and actions and thought patterns we have, if you go that far, if they're not adaptations or exaptations, they're kind of epiphenomena. They're kind of the steam above the factory, or kind of accidental byproducts. They don't do us any harm, so they're not necessarily selected out, but they don't really contribute to our survival or reproduction. They don't really serve any function. I'm just trying to think of an example of that. Well, obviously the example I'm thinking of primarily is whether arts practice is one of those. But there's probably others as well. I'll just have a quick think. Well, certainly, consciousness has been described as an epiphenomenon. We don't really need consciousness in some understandings. We don't need to have first-person experience. At least that's how some theorists have framed it. So that might be an example of an epiphenomenon. But all of those kind of that taxonomy of behaviour, that taxonomy of evolutionary endpoints as either adaptations, exaptations, or epiphenomena, all of them seem pretty unsatisfactory, at least feel unsatisfactory, when referred to arts practice, but also to things like morality or things like, as I say, religion. Certainly I know that things like altruism, there's some pretty good accounts of why altruism, as a moral sense, would evolve in a population. But it's quite unsettling to think that our altruistic tendencies might be just the end point of an evolutionary narrative. It feels too instrumentalist. It doesn't feel like it's operating in a interpersonal phenomenal realm of lived experience. It feels like the clockwork mechanism has revealed itself, and you've suddenly turned into Deckard from Blade Runner. And the same is very much true of art, I think. I mean, certainly reading Ramachandran and Zeki or whoever else, Pinker has been very critical about art for this reason, and philosophy indeed. Is that it's I think Pinker would describe it as would kind of account for it as an epiphenomenon. I think Zeki and Ramachandran talk about it more as a kind of exaptation, that we don't really need art, but it's evolved as it's the firings of certain or the activation of certain behaviour patterns which does have function, which perhaps are overstimulated, or which we have taught ourselves to overstimulate, but which may have some kind of exaptive function in terms of social cohesion or whatever. But Pinker, I think, would say, or at least did say in one of his earlier books, it was kind of epiphenomenal. It was pretty pointless activity. Steam above the factory. It's just the we had developed this ability to put things together and to be creative and to imagine subjunctive futures and those kind of things. And now we're just doing it because we can, not because it serves any function, but it's really just the epiphenomenal behaviour. So as I say, all of those are pretty unsatisfying if you're trying to make a living in art, or if you feel some kind of personal attachment to it. I'm not quite sure why they're unsatisfying, or why they feel the way they do. I guess that's something I have to think about. But as I say, I think that unsettling feeling when we're talking about this is because it comes out of this evolutionary narrative, and it's an evolutionary narrative which we don't feel we have any place within on a kind of day-to-day level. We kind of know it exists and we can kind of see it around us, but certainly speaking purely personally, I don't feel myself personally identified with the evolutionary narrative. So I don't feel evolution working through me to produce art. Perhaps I should try to. So as I say, it feels like this. It feels like it's just a river of time doing it, rather than the things like me floating in the river.